Shalom, and welcome to Hebrew Bible Secrets with your host, Rabbi Jeremy Beaton. We are reading today from the book of Mathew, starting at chapter 23. The book of Mathew, chapter 23. 1. Then Yahushua spoke to the multitude and to his disciples. 2. Saying, the experts of the Torah and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. 3. All, therefore, whatever they tell you, to guard, that guard and work. But do not imitate their deeds, for they say one thing and do another. 4. For they bind heavy burdens and hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. 5. But all their deeds they do to be seen by men. They make prominent their tefillin, and magnify their ziziots on their robes. 6. And love the uppermost rooms at Moedim, feasts, and the chief seats in the Kohalim. 7. And greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, my great one, my great one. 8. But be not called my great one, for one is your Adam, Master, Lord, and all of you are brothers. 9. And call no man your Av upon the earth, for one is your Av, which is in the Shamayim, heaven. 10. Neither be you called masters, for one is your master, Adam, Lord, Messiah. 11. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. 12. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be humbled, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. 13. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut up the kingdom of Shamayim, heaven, against men. For you neither go in yourselves, neither you permit those that are entering to go in. 14. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows, batiyim, houses, and for pretense make long petitions. Therefore you shall receive the greater judgment. 15. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of Sheol than yourselves. 16. Woe to you, you blind guides, who say, whosoever shall swear by the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, it is nothing, but whoever shall swear by the gold of the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, he is a debtor. 17. Blind fools, for what is greater, the gold or the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, that sanctifies the gold? 18. And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing, but whosoever swears by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. 19. You are blind, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? 20. Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar swears by it, and by all things thereon. 21. And who shall swear by the Beth Hamikdash, the temple, swears by it, and by him that dwells therein. 22. And he that shall swear by the Shamayim swears by the throne of Elohim, and by him that sits there. 23. To you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and aniseed and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of Torah, judgment, loving kindness, and trustworthiness. These you should have done, and not to leave the others undone. 24. You blind guides, who strain at gnats and swallow camels. 25. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. 26. You blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and plate, that the outside of them may be clean also. 27. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like the whitewashed tombs, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. 28. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous to men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. 29. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the tombs of the righteous. 30. And say, if we had been in the days of our Avot fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. 31. Therefore, you be witnesses to yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. 32. Fill up then the measure of your ancestors. 33. You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the judgment of Gehenna? 34. Therefore, behold, I send ye prophets and wise men, and experts of the Torah, and some of them you shall kill and destroy, and some of them shall you scourge in your Kohanim, and persecute them from city to city. 35. That upon ye may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Jehoiada, whom you murdered between the Beth Hamidash temple and the altar. 36. Verily I say to you, all these things shall come upon this generation. 37. O Jerusalem, 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 you that kill the prophets and stone them which are sent to you, how often would I have gathered your children together, even as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you would not. 38. Behold, your Beth, your house, is left to you desolate. 39. For I say to you, you shall not see me henceforth, till you shall say, blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. So there now ends chapter 23. So we'll go back and have a look at some of the footnotes in chapter 23. Okay, just to reiterate, this chapter is actually about Yahushua's standoff with the radical zealots of the school of Shammai. Okay, there were two schools, one Shammai and one Hillel. Okay, so let's go to the first footnote, which is in verse 2, saying, the experts of the Torah and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So let's have a look at this quickly. The people who ruled the temple at the time of Yahushua were the school of Shammai, as the school of Hillel had lost out on favor after the elder Hillel had died. These were very pious and meek Pharisees, very humble. Okay, so there you have it, two schools, Shammai and Hillel. Okay, so the next footnote we have is in verse 3. All therefore, whatever they tell you to guard. So we have a footnote here, all therefore, whatever they tell you to guard. So let's look at this word they. So we have the Hebrew Mathew Shem Tov here has the term he. All therefore, whatever he tells you to guard. The he meaning Moses' Torah. Torah obedience is mandatory. The term they is for the Pharisees and Sadducees who read the Torah while sitting upon Moses' seat in the synagogues. Only those which are judges making Torah rulings. Note, all the Pharisees were not judges. and this refers to all future rulings to be made by the house of Judah, because they are the lawgiver and stand to this day. Their authority was never revoked. See Genesis 49 and 10. The Hebrew word Yomah or Yoma in Mathew 23 is understood for all present and future rulings based on the Torah. There was no New Testament in place, so the scriptures that they used in making day-to-day decisions were from the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, and customs, traditions that were accepted, known as oral traditions, that had been since the time of Moses. Christians argue in ignorance with the oral Torah, while they keep many of oral Torah commandments established by our sages. One such commandment of how to conduct marriages and deaths is from oral Torah. They were not developed by the popes. In fact, Messianic and Christendom does them, but still lives in ignorance about the oral Torah, while developing its own new traditions which they raise above Yahweh's words. The writings today known as the New Testament were not bound together as one book until the 4th century CE. And before this, they were simply scrolls and letters being carried and kept by different disciples and followers of Yahushua. We are to believe and agree on everything that the Torah teaches us and oral Torah expounds upon. We are to agree with the Torah rulings of Judah, the Torah ones and oral ones that expound on truth. In case of controversy, the Levites are to make judgment which will hold true for all times. So for that we have Deuteronomy 21 and 5. So let me go to Deuteronomy 21 and 5, see if I can find that quickly. 21 and 5. Okay, so we have here, and the Kohanim, the sons of Levi, a Levi, shall come near. For them Yahweh your power has chosen to speak to him, and to bless in the name of Yahweh. And by their word shall every controversy and every stroke be tried. Okay, so if there was ever a controversy with Judah about a decision, then the Levites were called in. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 3 again. All therefore, whatever they tell you to guard, that guard and work. Okay, let's have a look at this work. So, if you want to know about the oral Torah, I suggest you buy the Siddur. The Aramaic says to guard means to obey and to do the commandments of the Torah scrupulously, which are expounded by the oral Torah. So, to have the oral Torah, you need Forever Israel Siddur. So I suggest you have a look at Amazon and get yourself a Siddur if you want to learn more about the oral Torah. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 4. For they bind heavy burdens and hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders. Okay, let's have a look at this, men's shoulders. The ones here that Yahushua was identifying were the school of Shammai, or Shomarim, also known as the observant ones. As illustrated, that the Talmud has various types of Pharisees. The 5 Pharisees described in a negative way in the Talmud are almost like the 5 negative things in the Passover to be avoided in Hebrew, called kametz, such as grain, wheat, barley, oats, and rye. See footnote Mathew 23:13. For the 7 types of Pharisees, one such group was the Shikmi, which were following someone from Shechem, or in the Hebrew, the town known as the Shoulder. Remember Abraham and Shechem, where he built his first altar. Genesis 12 and 8. So let's have a quick look at Genesis 12 and 8. See if we can get that. Genesis 12 and 8. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched her tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to Yahweh and called on the name of Yahweh. So we have a footnote here, pitched her tent. So we have, the verb here is to pitch Sarah's tent first and then his own. This is because Abraham loved Sarah, and the sages wrote about this. Each wife would have her own tent or home. Okay, so that's where Abraham built his first altar. Okay, so we have a continuation now. The word shoulder is Yahushua's way to bring Shechem into view. This is how Hebrew very cleverly depicts the bad Pharisees from the house of Shammai. The Pharisees from the school of Hillel were in fact praised by Yahushua, and you can read that in Mathew chapter 5. The Sermon on the Mount is all about them. Okay, so if you want to learn more about that, go to Mathew chapter 5. Okay, so the next footnote we have is a continuation. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. So let's have a look at this. These were some rabbinic commandments which were at times becoming burdensome and were disputed from the school of Shammai. These were disputed oral laws that were constantly being argued over by the two main schools of thought. Yahweh chose the school of Hillel over Shammai later through a voice. This is well attested in Hebrew tradition. When they heard a voice called Bat Kol, Shammai's voice, which declared for Yahweh that the rulings of Hillel will go forward. Therefore we need to pay attention to the school of Hillel and the oral Torah they teach. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 5. But all their deeds they do to be seen by men. They make prominent their tefillin. So let's have a look at this tefillin. Wearing tefillin is an optional commandment for believers to be worn in the morning prayers known as the Shakrit prayer, as nowhere does the Torah indicate to make a box, but Deuteronomy 6:8 was not agreed to be a box by all of Israel and different sects of Judaism at the temple times. So that's telling us tefillin is not a commandment, but if you want to wear it, you can wear it. Okay? The idea here is to, have Torah in your head, on your mind, and obviously on your arm. So, your actions doing Torah deeds. Okay? So that's what we're talking about here. Not just having a box on your head. But if you want to wear the tefillin, you can. Okay, so there's continuation after their tefillin and magnify their ziziots on their robes. So we are commanded to wear zizits mentioned in Numbers 15:38. Yahushua does not say anything negative like do not wear them. He is making a simple point. Do not overdo things for showmanship. Yahushua wore the zizits. So there you have it. So Jesus, Yahushua, the Messiah, wore the zizits. Okay? So, wearing the zizits. So you could wear a vest like this and have the zizits on underneath the four corners of the garment to be worn inside your shirt or whatever you're wearing at the time. So let's go to the next footnote, which we have in verse 6. And love the uppermost rooms at Moedim, feasts. So let's have a look at this word, feasts. So we have the 7 annual feasts also explained in oral Torah. The zealots, who were very angry men, loved to broaden their clothes, but they hated Gentiles. So, we have Yeshua was teaching, to love thy neighbor as thyself, and the zealots obviously hated the Gentiles, which obviously is not a good report of Torah. So let's go to the next footnote. So we have here in verse 7, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, my great one, my great one. So let's have a look at this, my great one. In the first century, the issue was not calling someone a rabbi. This was a respectable title for a teacher of the Torah. They started to use a term that had come to mean my great one, which was a reserved definition for the set-apart one of Israel, Yahweh. But using this term was the problem. Using Rabbi was fine, and to this day has no problems. In the first century, during the time of Yahushua, a group within the ranks of the school of Shammai had taken precedent, and they loved to be called by these titles. They said whatever he said is as if it is from above. They refused to negotiate with any Gentile, hence we see great tensions arose between Roman authorities and these people. They also hated Yahushua and his miracles, while the school of Hillel supported Yahushua. Christians have greatly stumbled over this and misunderstood this. All these words mean is my teacher. So rabbi means my teacher. In fact, Yahushua makes us rabbis in the future kingdom. See footnote Mathew 5 and 20. When you call someone my great one, you are taking credit for things of Yahweh. That would be blasphemous. Some of the rabbis in the first century had tried to do this, which caused tensions. But there were many good rabbis in the first century too. This is the tension between the school of Hillel, who were very meek and pious Pharisees, and the school of Shammai, which had some die-hard fundamentalist types of people. So that gives you a bit more understanding there about the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 8. But be not called my great one. So let's have a look at this. Unfortunately, we see the slant of the anti-Semitic translators calling this particular word rabbi, and then trying to make out that it is forbidden, can only come from the circles of ignorance. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with calling somebody your rabbi if they are your teacher and teaching Torah, obviously. Okay, so the next footnote we have is a continuation. For one is your Adon, Master Lord, and all of you are brothers. So let's have a look at this. All of you are brothers. The reading even Messiah does not exist and is inserted by a scribe. Okay, so that's inserted there. So let's have a look at the next footnote, which we have in verse 9. And call no man your Av upon the earth. So let's have a look at this. So in 2 Kings 2:12, Elisha refers to Elijah as his Abba, meaning people can have spiritual fathers on earth. And most certainly they can have daddies and papas too, And this is not prohibited or the context at all. All this is saying is do not raise up anybody above Abba Yahweh in the heaven. And that is the only context of this passage. Because we only have one Abba, one Father, who is the source of all living things and beings. Okay, so let's have a look at 2 Kings 2 and 12. 2 Kings 2 and 12. And Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen there. And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and tore them into pieces. So let's have a look at, we've got a footnote here for my father. Elijah was Elisha's spiritual father, and Elisha respected him immensely. Many people can learn a lesson here of student-teacher relationship. So that, it's there in the right context. It's like you're calling somebody your father in the sense of obviously your teacher, then that's not an issue. But if you're calling a man, my father, as if he's the creator of the universe, then that is going to be an issue with the Father in the heavens. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 10. Neither be you called masters, for one is your master, Adon, Lord, Messiah. So one is your master. Let's have a look at this, master. The whole emphasis is not to usurp authority in Shamayim, in heaven. Okay? So only one is your master, meaning the Father, the creator of the universe. Okay, so the next footnote we have is in verse 11. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. So let's have a look at this, servant. Desire to serve rather than to be served. It takes a lot of humility to do that. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 12. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be humbled, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. So let's have a look at this word, exalted. So this is directed towards the zealots from Beth Shammai, who had exalted themselves, and the humble is directed towards the Pharisees from Beth Hillel, house of Hillel. It applies the same way in our time too. Okay, so humble yourself and you shall be exalted. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 13. But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. So let's have a look at this. The Talmud describes 7 types of Pharisees. You can decide which types these ones are. A, the superficial Pharisee. Shikmi, literal means shoulders. B, the critical Pharisee. Nikfi, literal knocking. C, the calculating Pharisee. Quitzai, literal cutting. D, the persistent Pharisee. Dukai, literal pounding. E, the Pharisee for whom existence is work. F, the Pharisee concerned with his own strengths. And G, the Pharisee from inclination or the Pharisee from fear. The Babylonian Talmud supplement both Dr. Nathan 37:4. There are also the false Pharisees. King Alexander Janai said to his wife Salome Alexandra, "Do not be afraid of the Pharisees or the non-Pharisees, i.e. Sadducees, but of the wildcats which mimic the Pharisees. For their deeds are like the deeds of Zimri." Numbers 25:14. Let's have a look at that quickly. Numbers 25:14. Numbers 25:14. Now the name of the Israeli, Yashreeli, that was slain, even that was slain with the Midianite woman was Zimri, the son of Salu, a prince of a chief Beth house among the Shimoni. 14. Now the name of the Yashreeli that was slain, even that was slain with the Midianite woman, was Zimri, the son of Salu, a prince of a chief Beth house among the Shimoni. Okay, so that's talking about Zimri, but they seek the reward of Phinehas. So Numbers 25:11. Let's have a look at that quickly. So Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the Kohen, priest, has turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, while he manifested much zeal for my sake among them, that I consume not the children of Israel in my jealousy. Okay, so we have also, that's in the Babylonian Talmud, the Sotar 22b. So Zimri, a Simonite who had illicit relations with a Moabite woman and submitted to the rites of Baal Peor, his deeds violated Torah. Phinehas, son of Moses, brother of Aaron, by slaying Zimri, he ended the slaughter of Israel, of Yashreeli. He was rewarded for his zeal for Torah by succeeding his father as high priest. So there you have it. So Phinehas slew Zimri, okay, and was rewarded as high priest, okay. So let's go to the next footnote. So the next footnote we have is, for you shut up the kingdom of Shamayim against men. Okay, let's have a look at this. So the Midrash term for Gentiles. The school of Shammai believed that Gentiles could never be saved, while the school of Hillel believed they could be saved and reached out to them in love. Shammai banned Gentile rescue. See Shabbat 31a and Sanhedrin 105a, as per our Eliezer. So we have, the school of Shammai believe that the Gentiles could not be rescued and could not obviously, enter the kingdom, whereas the school of Hillel believed that they could be saved and reached out to them in love. Okay, so, they weren't haters, the school of Hillel, whereas it's apparent that the school of Shammai were haters and hated, obviously, the Gentiles. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is a continuation. For you neither go in yourselves, neither you permit those that are entering to go in. So let's have a look at this, entering to go in. Religious men can make it difficult for people to find the truth when they start to pervert it. Unfortunately, some Pharisees and Sadducees had started to pervert truth by causing people to err and following wrong doctrines. This is happening in our times too, both with the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. Both claim to have the way, but both have perverted the truth. Yahushua is not saying that because of you no one can attain rescue, but saying that you make it difficult for people to discern righteousness of Yahweh versus unrighteousness. The context here was 1st century, the school of Shammai, who caused many such issues with Gentile rescue. Note, the Midrash term men, see our footnote in John 3:3. What had happened was that the school of Shammai had ruled that no Gentile could be saved. Hence, Yahshua is accusing the school of Shammai of wrongdoing, while the school of Hillel ruled that if Gentiles follow the 7 no-hide laws, they can be rescued to eternal life. Okay, so you have the understanding again from regarding the school of Shammai and regarding the school of Hillel. So one obviously was in favour of rescuing the Gentiles, while the other was against rescuing the Gentiles. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 14. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' Beatim, houses, and for pretense make long petitions. Therefore you shall receive the greater judgment. Okay, let's have a look at this word judgment. This entire verse is missing in the eyewitness account of Mathew. Therefore this particular verse should be ignored both in Luke and Mark, who are not eyewitness accounts. And also note that this is not part of any original reading of the manuscripts. A similar reading is this in Mark 12:40 and Luke 20:47. We have left this in for completeness. This does not mean that the Pharisees were going to hell, which is sadly a wrong projection unto the Hebrew nation. The judgment Yahushua spoke about is earthly and not eternal. He is not God to decide the fate of all the Yehudim in the world. Christendom has made him God, which he is not. While the course the church has taken is for all the Yehudim, or Judah, to be hell-bound, and for them, Torah breakers, to be in Shamayim, heaven. Nothing can be further from the truth. Yahweh does not send Torah keepers to hell, no matter how mechanically they keep the commandments. He does expect a right heart attitude from all. Okay, so Judah is not going to hell because they obviously keep the commandments, and obviously it's the Christians who should be worried, because if they're not keeping the commandments, they won't be going to the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom, which will be in Israel, and have eternity. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 15. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel sea and land to make one proselyte. So let's have a look at this word proselyte. When you make a convert and then tell him it's okay to break the Torah, as we are in favour, this is cheapening favour and causing the person to become a son of hell rather than the son of the kingdom. The churches are full of these types of people. So, the church is saying, Jesus died for our sins, we're in favour now, we don't have to keep the commandments. This is what we're talking about here. Cheapening the Torah, saying that you don't need to keep the commandments and that you have favour. So, again, be warned. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in continuation. And when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of Sheol than yourselves. Okay, let's have a look at this quickly. So, it says, see footnote in Luke 16:21. So let's have a look at Luke 16:21. So Luke 16:21, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table, moreover the dogs came and licked his sores. So we've got a footnote here for sores. In the analogy, the beggar is Judah, who is treated with shame and contempt all over the world. The world does not like the Hebrew people and kills them wherever they could find them, while Yahweh has them in his hands. We find the world mostly ending up in the wicked sections of Sheol, like the rich man, while Judah is in Abraham's bosom. Okay, so the analogy there is the beggar is Judah, okay, who is treated with shame and contempt all over the world. Okay, so let's move to the next footnote, which is in verse 17. Blind fools, for what is greater, the gold of the Beth Hamikdash temple that sanctifies the gold? So let's have a look at this quickly. They were making people swear by objects such as gold and raising it above the Beth Hamikdash, the temple of Yahweh, which is what was sanctifying the people. Okay, so rather than swear by the temple, the Beth Hamikdash, they were swearing by the gold on the temple or in the temple. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 19. You are blind, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? So let's have a look at this. So Rabbi Yahushua corrects the understanding of errant teachers that it is the altar that sanctifies, not the gift placed on it. So there you have it from Rabbi Yahushua. That is the altar that sanctifies and not the gift. Not the gold, but the altar. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 20. Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar, swears by it, and by all things thereon. Okay, so let's have a look at this, all things thereon. So Yahushua shows that we swear our oaths, and they are binding in the name of Yahweh. Okay. So if you make an oath, obviously it's going to be binding to the Father. Okay. So the next footnote we have is in verse 23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and aniseed. So let's have a look at this and see. So we have the Torah commanded tithes of the land, Leviticus 27:30 and Deuteronomy 14:22. But the Pharisees had extended things to other items also. They were more concerned with little things while neglecting the weightier matters of Torah, such as justice and mercy. Okay, let's have a look at Leviticus 27:30. Leviticus 27:30 reads, and all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the etz, the tree, is Yahweh's. It is holy to Yahweh. Okay? And the other footnote we have is Deuteronomy 14:22. So let's have a look at that quickly. Deuteronomy 14:22. Tithe, so that you become wealthy. All the increase of your seed that the field brings forth year by year. Okay, so we have a footnote here for become wealthy. The Hebrew word ma'asah is used twice to indicate this is mandatory and no excuses should be offered, as the tithing allows one to be increased and blessed. Okay, this is known as the second tithe. Tithe only belongs to the Levites. So you have a Levite at your gate now, so there's no excuse for not tithing. Rabbi Simon Altaf, the Kohen, is here, so you can give your tithe, your 10% of your earnings, to the right person, who is Rabbi Simon. Okay? So we have another footnote here. All the increase of your seed that the field brings forth year by year. So that the field, let's have a look at this. Here, the field represents any work that you do to bring money in. In the ancient times, the crops that were harvested from which the tithe was paid annually for the second tithe. So here the field represents any work that you do to bring money in. Okay, so the field obviously still applies today. Any work that you do to bring money in. So 10% of that work belongs, or that money belongs to Abba Yahweh. So therefore you must give it to the Kohanim, Rabbi Simon Altaf, as the commandments are not done away with, so therefore these things have to continue until the Father brings us back into the land. Okay? So let's go to the next footnote, which is a continuation. For they pay tithe of mint and aniseed and cumin. So let's have a look at this cumin. So Yahushua does not condemn them for paying tithes, as they are still incumbent on all believers to be given to Levites and not to pastors and bishops who have no right to them. So there you have it. So to be given to Levites and not to pastors and bishops who have no right to them. So if you understand that Rabbi Simon is a Levite, that's where your tithes belong. Okay? So let's move on to the next footnote. Which is also a continuation. And have omitted the weightier matters of the Torah, judgment, loving kindness. So let's have a look at loving kindness. Not just some of these people did, but majority of Christendom has likewise forsaken Torah completely and thrown out the law of Yahweh as useless. They will reap judgment for this way of living. Okay, so again, the importance of keeping the Torah, keeping the commandments, is what we're talking about here. To escape judgment. Okay, so the next footnote we have is and trustworthiness. So let's have a look at this, and trustworthiness. So this is the Aramaic reading, trustworthiness. And the next footnote we have is in verse 24. You blind guides who strain at gnats and swallow camels. So let's have a look at this, swallow camels. The Shemite Pharisees were great at debating scholarship, but lacked humility. They would argue over the little matters, while ignoring the important bigger picture. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which we have is in verse 25. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. So let's have a look at this quickly. There were rules of ritual cleanness, of utensils and pots and pans, which still apply in the home. Note, Yahushua does not annul the rule, but use this to illustrate men's uncleanness on the inside while trying to look proper on the outside. Basically, hypocrisy. Okay, so I just want to go back to the beginning here. So it says there were rules of ritual cleanness, of utensils and pots and pans. So this is also, apparent, or this is also what we should be doing today, is making sure that our pots and our pans and utensils are clean by obviously giving them a certain mikvah. So this is all in the Siddur. So if you want to know how to clean your pots and your pans and your utensils the correct way, I suggest that you buy the Siddur. Okay? So there's a certain way that we clean our pots and our pans. So you should, you should look at that. So the next footnote we have is in verse 26. You blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and plate, that the outside of them may be clean also. Okay, that which is within the cup. Let's have a look at this. There were laws known as mikvot, laws of washing of vessels of earth, bronze and iron. Unclean earthen vessels were broken, but there was a strict regime of how to wash the others prior to use and after its use. Okay, so that's what I was just explaining there, yeah? So in order to find out how to do this, you need to buy the Siddur. You can buy the Siddur, the Forever Israel Siddur, A Daily Living Prayers at Amazon.com. Okay, so I recommend you buy this book. It's essential for every Hebrew home. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote we have is in verse 27. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like the whitewashed tombs. So let's have a look at this. These were covered with lime, so that the Hebrew travellers, like the Nazarites, the priests, would not touch these and get defiled along their travels. Okay, let's go to the next footnote. Right, so just expanding on that. So the tombs obviously had to be marked with lime so that anybody coming near them would see them and would realise that, this is a place of burial, death, or whatever, so they could avoid it. So that's why the tombs were marked with lime. Okay, so you could see ahead, so to speak, and avoid being defiled. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in the same verse, continuation, which indeed appear beautiful outward. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So these highways and graves were marked with lime water yearly in the first of Adar, which is the month of February. So when people looked upon them, they looked beautiful from the outside. Hence, Yahushua uses the symbolism. Okay, so it was the month of Adar that they were marked, which is the month of February. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which you have which is also a continuation. Which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanness. So let's have a look at this word bones. So we have here, the Hebrew scholar Rambam tells us this. Whoever finds a grave or a dead carcass or anything for the dead that defiles, by the tent he is obliged to put a mark upon it, that it may not be a stumbling to others. And on the immediate days of a Chag, a celebration, they go out from the Sanhedrin to mark the graves. With what do they mark? With chalk infused in water and poured upon the unclean place. They do not put the mark upon the top of the unclean place, or exactly in it, but so that it may stand out here and there, at the side of it, that what is pure may not be corrupted. And they do not put the mark far from the place of the uncleanness, that they may not waste the land of Israel. And they do not set the mark on those that are manifest, for they are known to all, but upon those that are doubtful, as a field in which a grave is lost, and places that are open, and want a covering. Hilich to meth. However, here Yahushua throws a diatribe against the school of Shammai, because they had actually murdered many good Pharisees in the school of Hillel through the zealots. The dead men in this picture are the righteous ones they killed. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which we have is in verse 31. Therefore, you be witnesses to yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. So let's have a look at this. So the zealots had killed the Pharisees, recorded in the Talmud. Some of these Pharisees were even ranked as prophets. The zealots had aligned themselves with the school of Shammai. See Acts 5:36. So let's have a look at Acts 5:36. So Acts 5:36. For before these days rose up Tudor Theodas, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who were slain, and all, as many as obeyed him, were scattered and brought to nothing. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote. We have, it's in verse 33. You serpents, you generation of vipers. So you serpents, let's have a look at this first. So serpent is an idiomatic expression to mean cunning or underhanded people. This is directed at the zealots who wanted to murder all the Gentiles and throw them out of Israel. Okay, so at the end of that you have you generation of vipers. So let's have a look at this. Vipers. Variety of serpents. See previous note. So it's just explaining obviously the hatred that some of these people had for the Gentiles. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 34. Therefore, behold, I send to ye prophets and wise men, and experts of the Torah, and some of them you shall kill and destroy, and some of them shall you scourge in your Kohalim. So let's have a look at this word Kohalim. The zealots controlled many synagogues, that if someone spoke out against something that was established by the school of Shammai and wanted instead to follow Hillel, they could be murdered. One such rabbi was Tarfon, who almost got murdered for following a ruling of Hillel, which Shammai opposed. See Barakot 11a and Barakot 1:4. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which we have is in verse 35. That upon ye may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Jehoiada. So let's have a look at this. From the blood of righteous Abel, or Hebel. So we have here Targum of Jonathan, paraphrased like this. The price of the bloods of, because of all the lost generations. Okay, so those who were killed, okay, the lost generations. To the blood of Zechariah, son of Jehoiada. So let's have a look at this. Son of Jehoiada. It is often said by the Hebrew writer, see, that, Joden, sometimes it is Jonathan, asked, Akka, Acha, asked Acha whether they slew Zechariah in the court of the Yeshraeli, or in the court of the woman. He answered him, neither in the court of Yeshraeli, nor in the court of the woman, but in the court of the priests. Some teachers think it was Zechariah 1:1, the son of Berechiah, son of Iddu, is meant. Some teachers assert that the correct reading is Jehoiada, not Berechiah, as per Jerome. Reference 2 Chronicles 24:20. Some speculate this was Zechariah, the son of Baruch, according to Josephus. Others contend that it was the prophet. The reading we have used is that it was Jehoiada. The Hebrew Targum tells us this as, ye slew Zechariah, the son of Iddu, the high priest and trustworthy prophet, in the house of the sanctuary of Hashem, on the day of atonement, because he reproved you, that ye might not do that evil which is before Hashem. This was an act done by the idolaters when Zechariah spoke out against them. We also have a continuation, whom you murdered between Beth Hamikdash temple and the altar. So let's have a look at this altar. So we have www.jewishvirtuallibrary.org. The Agadah about the murder of Zechariah in the temple concerns Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada. 2 Chronicles 24:20. But In some of the sources, he is confused with Zechariah, the prophet, Zechariah 1:1, Ezra 5:1, and also with Zechariah mentioned in Isaiah 8:1. The Agadah magnifies the crime which was committed by the king and the people. 7 sins were committed by Israel on that day. Lam Ar Proem 23. Among them that he was slain on the Day of Atonement, which happened to fall on the Sabbath. Not content with the punishment which King Joash suffered according to the biblical story. 2 Chronicles 24:23. The Agadah tells that after the slaughter in Jerusalem and its environs, Nebuzaradan found the blood of Zechariah bubbling up. When he inquired as to the nature of this blood, he was first told that it was the blood of sacrifices. But when he investigated and found it not to be so, they admitted whose blood it was. Nebuzaradan said, I will appease him. And he stood and killed in cold blood the members of the Sanhedrin, the priestly class, and the rest of the people, a total of 94,000. But the blood still seethed until Nebuzaradan angrily rebuked Zechariah, saying, Do you want me to destroy all of them? Then the blood stopped seething. So we have Git 57b, Sanhedrin 97b, Lam R. I bid also on Lam R 413, TJ TA apostrophe AN 69A B, Sanhedrin 96b, Sanhedrin 96b, CF also Mathew 23:35. According to some of the versions, Nebuzaradan was so impressed by this example of justice that he repented his own misdeeds and was converted to Judaism. Thus, the murder of Zechariah was the direct cause of the destruction of the temple and all the suffering connected with it. Although the story refers explicitly to the first temple, it seems meant to explain the destruction of the second one, for which no obvious reason was apparent. Hence, it is quite plausible that the Agadah has in mind similar incidents, which happened prior to the destruction of the second temple, such as the murder by John Hyrcanus of his brother during the sacrificial service. Jos, Jos, apostrophe ANT 11.300, or the slaying by zealots of an innocent citizen called Zechariah in the temple. JOS apostrophe wars apostrophe 4.335. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 39. For I say to you, you shall not see me henceforth. So let's have a look at this. You shall not see me till henceforth. The whole narrative is about violence, injustice, which has the word Hamas or Hamas. So the word does not mean that the Hamas party ruled in Jerusalem, but that injustice will bring about judgment. We find this in Genesis 6:11-13, when injustice brought the flood. So let's have a look at this, Genesis 6:11-13. Okay, Genesis 6:11-13. The earth also was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. 12. So Elohim looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. 13. And Elohim said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them from the earth. Okay, so the whole narrative is about violence, injustice. So, we see that going on the earth today, violence and injustice is everywhere. So let's go to the last footnote, which is, blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. Okay, let's have a quick look at this. So remember, Yahweh said he will not bring a literal flood, but the flood is allegory, represents nations, and Yahweh did not say, I will not bring a flood of people, because that still applied. Okay, Yahshua was actually warning of an impending judgment mentioned in Ezekiel 7:2, and the cause is mentioned in Ezekiel 7:11. So let's have a look at Ezekiel 7:2. So Ezekiel 7:2, also you, son of man, thus says the Master Yahweh to the land of Israel, the end is come upon the four corners of the land. So that's Ezekiel 7:2, and then we have Ezekiel 7:11. Let's read that quickly. Violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness. None of them shall remain, nor of their multitude, nor of any of theirs, neither shall there be wailing for them. Okay, so obviously when Israel does wickedly against Yahweh, Yahweh brings some kind of destruction to Israel. So that's a warning, for those, who are returning back to the commandments, Wickedly is also not keeping the commandments. So, you need to seriously think about this. Okay, so we have a continuation here. This is the theme here, and not individuals going to hell. These people who are called the worst of the heathens in the narrative of Ezekiel, the first time appeared, who were the Babylonians, and Israel was emptied. The second time Israel was emptied, it was the Romans. Note that the third time these worst of the heathens arrived, both the people of the first Babylonians' lands and Roman occupied lands in the Middle East came to fulfillment in the Muslims who occupied those lands today. Yahshua was showing not only the coming impending judgment, Romans, but also the one after that. The ones that the radical Muslims will enact to try to empty the land and only succeed in capturing Jerusalem. Hence the finish in Mathew 23:39. With calling upon the name of Yahweh is an intrinsic clue that the end-time judgment that will befall Israel will be through the radical Muslim nations who turn up to war with Israel. Okay, so let's go to the last footnote, which we have, which is in verse 39, also a continuation. For I say to you, you shall not see me henceforth till you shall say, blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. So let's have a look at this. We have a footnote for Yahweh. So the Hebrew people collectively have to repent and pray together in the name of Yahweh. That is what will cause the Messiah to come for the first time. The real chosen Hebrew people will one day have a national fast when they are at the brink of disaster. The quotation is taken from Psalm 118:26. Okay, let's have a look at Psalm 118:26. Psalm 118:26. Blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. We praise you out of the house of Yahweh. So we have a footnote here for Yahweh. The day the Hebrew people say this benediction, that is the day Messiah comes to Israel, and not on the day worldwide evangelism completes or we distribute Bibles to the whole world, which is a Christian dogma not found in Scripture. Okay, so that brings us now to the end of chapter 23, and I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the other side. This is Rabbi Jeremy Beaton saying thank you for watching. Baruch Shem, Kivod, Makuto, Leolam Va'ed. Benevolent be the name of his esteemed kingdom, forever and ever and ever. Amen.